Hi everyone. In light of recent events and the current revolution taking place in the United States, I've decided to take advantage of the opportunity I have to amplify Black voices. This video is a compilation of messages from young Black men and women who have allowed me to share their stories. I ask that you listen, I ask that you learn, and I ask that you try to understand what they and many others go through on a daily basis. To those of you who have shared your truth today, thank you. We see you, we honor you, and we validate who you are. It's hard to talk about this stuff. I don't have all the right words.
If I had to use one word to describe my experience as being a Black woman in America, I would say confusing.
I would actually use two separate words. I would say strong. We're taught a lot of things early, and we kind of have to grow up early. And just looking at our history in America, you would have to be strong to go through any of it.
If I had to describe my Black experience in a word, I would say draining. I find myself having to always be less of myself because I don't want to be pinned as the overly aggressive Black woman in the room, or just another angry Black woman, or an angry Black person.
Being a Black man in America is being understood that you're being perceived as a threat. No matter who you are, no matter your character.
One word to describe my experience as a Black American would be unappreciated.
I didn't know that I was Black until I moved here. I mean, yeah, say Black, but that's not what you use to identify yourself. I'm a Jamaican, I never actually thought about my race. And then I moved here, and with everything that happened, I was forced to identify myself as a Black woman. When I had that realization, I wanted to be unapologetically Black. I purposely wanted to piss white people off. So knowing that we are so threatening, it makes you feel empowered.
Other word I'd have to use is culture, because even though we struggled through America and are still struggling, there's so much that we are, so much things that we are responsible for in America, as far as music and art and whatnot.
Being Black, we walk into rooms and we see no one who looks like us. And when we do see people like us, oftentimes it's us watching their execution on Twitter, or us watching them die on Instagram, or we see them in the news not receiving justice.
I started experiencing it probably from the age of 12 or 13. Just walking down the street and somebody crosses the street, or they clutch their bag, or they clutch their purse, or they lock their car, or you walk into a store and they assume you're trying to steal something, or the police are eyeing you, or they approach you because they think you fit a description.
I live in a constant state of fear that me going to school 6 hours away from home, I'll receive a phone call one day that my dad, who enjoys jogging, is jogging in his neighborhood, and he was gunned down by someone.
I don't think there's one word that I could use to describe it, because I've seen how people show a lot of interest in Black culture in America and Black culture from the Caribbean, especially when it comes on to LA and Jamaica. But obviously I've also been discriminated against, microaggressions mostly. I've never really, outside of one time I played a game where I was called the N-word. That's the only time I've really faced anything more than like microaggressive behaviors or whatever.
When asking everyone to participate, it was very hard to come up with the right questions to ask. So I decided to give general prompts and allow each person to give their version of the response. Elie and Amaya have had similar experiences identifying as mixed women, and they have chosen to share a little bit about that.
Growing like Miami in a predominantly white area. I was never really white enough to hang out with the black kids, but not black enough to hang out with the black kids. So it was just one of those things. It's like confusing of trying to fit myself of who am I and how do I fit in the spectrum of being a minority.
I know as a biracial person, my experiences have not been like the majority of the black community who have to face systematic racism and racial injustices every day. To be honest, I have noticed my own privilege regarding my skin color, even though I'm half black. I often get asked, "What are you?" when asked about my ethnicity. To me, this is extremely offensive because instead of getting to know me as a person, that's the first question someone asks. As a biracial person, many people misidentify me. To some, I'm a white girl with a pretty tan, while others are surprised I align with black culture. It gets exhausting to always justify that I am black.
Sometimes, people close to you or in your close surroundings do or say things that are offensive. Scott, Makenli, DJ, and Vanessa have shared about this.
I lived with him at the time. I moved out to the apartment with him after he said this. But we were watching a movie and this guy was wearing a costume and he wasn't supposed to look like a monkey, but he looked like a monkey in the costume, and I commented on how bad the costume was, like trying to portray what it was supposed to. And he said, my roommate said to me, "You have no right to be talking about monkeys, people looking like monkeys." And so that was like things like, he didn't say that word for word, but he basically said all of that.
I always have to code switch when I'm in different rooms with different people just to be accepted by them. Like I literally had one time one of my teammates told me, "Oh, the Atlanta jumped out of you when you said that." Like, why is it that where I'm from had to jump out of me when I said something that you, in a way that you've never heard it from me?
Someone asked me if they could be transracial, like comparing it to being transgender, and they were like, "Can I, as a white guy, just say like I'm black?" I was like, "No, that would be cultural appropriation. You can't just say you're black. That would be appropriation." And I was like, I can't even believe I had to say this because this was a grown man. So, yeah.
I had an experience once where I had this really close friend. It was my first year in college. I just dived into the whole diversity inclusion work, and there were a lot of social injustices happening on campus, especially towards people of color. Our president of the school decided that it was the last straw, and he was having a assembly for the entire school. This is foreign to college campuses, so it was kind of like a shock to everyone that we're having this assembly. All classes were canceled, and if there was a class scheduled for that block, the professors were to ensure that their students were at this assembly. I was working on a project because I'm an orientation leader. I was working on a project with a fellow, actually the friend. I was working on a project with a friend, and it was time for the assembly, and I was about to leave working on the project to go to this assembly, and my friend, knowing how important this issue is to me, like I've sat with her and talked about this and whatever, she had the audacity to look at me, sorry, this can't say anything, look at me and said she's not going to that because it's a waste of her time and she wants to go take a nap. And that was hurtful because knowing how many things are happening, we were going to address campus police. We were going to let people aware of what's happening on campus because, of course, if you're not facing the discrimination, you don't know that it's happening, especially when you're blind. And she didn't care. She thought it was a waste. She didn't see the point of it. And after that, like, it's things like that that really hurts white and non-white relationships, because if you're claiming to be an ally but it isn't doing what an ally should do, then who are you fooling? What are you doing?
At other times, we are subject to racial profiling or are caught in situations that are simply unnecessary. DJ, Travis, Ali, Scott, Vanessa, and Isiah can attest to this as well.
I was in Atlanta with one of my teammates for Thanksgiving, and we all went to the mall, and we're in Aldo, and I got some shoes and like one other thing, spent like $200. And my other teammate got something as well, and we were all walking out, and they were in front of me. They all had bags just like me. They were in front of me, and I was the one that got stopped. They stopped me. They're like, "Ma'am, we need to look inside your bag." And I was like, "Why?" And they were like, "Because, you know, we need to see your receipt. We don't know if you pay for it." I said, "But they walked out in front of me and they have a bag. Well, we need to see your bag." So they checked my bag, and obviously there was a receipt in it. And they're like, "Oh, thank you for shopping with us." Like, I was like, "No, screw you." And I literally just had to walk away, and I was very upset for the rest of the day.
I'm in California. This was before the protests started going off in Cali, in LA, and I was at the beach. I was at Junipero Beach, and it was like minutes to midnight. Bear in mind, there's a lot of people at the beach, so I'm not like the only person. There's a lot of people at the beach. There's cars parked up at the parking lot, everything. I'm on the lifeguard stand, just chilling, and the police come, but at the time, like, all they had were like very bright lights. It wasn't like flashing lights or anything, just very bright white lights, minutes to midnight. I turn over to these lights, I'm like, yo, this is bright. So I walk over because I'm like, yo, these lights are very bright. He later told me that was like the thing that they thought was sketchy and why they came over. I'm pretty sure at that point, like, he realized I was black. But anyway, they drive over, they stop where I am, the man comes out to the car. His assistant is standing at the car, so he's walking towards me. He's walking onto the sign, and his hand is on his gun. And he looks at me. He's like, "Sir, come down from the lifeguard stand." I'm like, okay, it's not that serious, bro. I didn't say that, but I was like, okay. And my friend comes back. He's like, "Sir, officer, is everything okay?" And the officer's like, "You can either keep skating or you can put your hands on the hood of my car." And my friend was like, "Yo, that's whoa." So you can tell he's getting tense. My friend's like, "No, I'm not leaving. He's gonna sit there because he's not gonna leave me." And so I come down and I'm like, and as I come off a lifeguard stand, he's like, "Do you have any weapons on you?" I'm like, "No, sir, I don't. I'm wearing a pastel lavender hoodie, African print fanny pack, shorts and slippers. Like, I really don't look like I have weapons on me, but I'm black." So then I asked him, like, what's going on? And he's like, "Well, you were on the lifeguard stand. It's after curfew." I'm pretty sure there is no curfew at that time. I'm pretty sure there was no curfew, because if there were a curfew, I would have gotten an Amber Alert on my phone. But at the time, I couldn't think about that because I was trying to stay alive. Yeah. So I get over to the car. This man is like, "Why are you here? What's going on?" I tell him, like, I'm an international student. I can't go home because the borders of my countries are closed because of coronavirus. I'm here with my brother. It's my friend that's on the side. I told him, like, "Yeah, I'm here with my brother." And yeah. And he's like, "Okay, do you have any weapons or warrants?" And I was like, "No, sir, I don't have any weapons. I've never interacted with the police." And he's like, "Oh," and he's like, "Well, can I have your ID?" I was like, "Well, I have a Jamaican driver's license. I don't know if that would work for you." And you can see they had a moment where they're like, "Oh, like this youth, like this guy, like, in for real, isn't me?" And so the assistant lady take my ID, she started taking my information, eye color, height, weight, all that. Me and this lady having a fun conversation. Me and this lady laughing, joking about it. Like, I'm chilling. I have a little tear run down right here because the breeze did cool. You see me? I did windy. So I'm just make it play. I'm gonna look into the bright lights. I'm gonna answer all their questions and everything. Cool, right? Innocent. This man come back now when she go and check in for the warrant, and he start talk to us. He start asking, "Why am I here?" He start asking a bunch of questions. And I was like, okay, all right. I'm here in California because Howard was doing something with Google. I tell him, say, I've worked with Google before, and that I got stuck here because Corona, so we had to leave, whatever, X, Y, and Z. Man asking about ambitions, what am I doing over the summer? I tell him on everything. At this point, we're laughing, we're joking. Me, the officer, and my friend. All of us are laughing, joking, right? Not a threat at all. lady comes back with the results. She gives him my ID, and he's about to give it to me now, and he's saying, this is the part. He says, well, we ran your ID, and no warrants came back like we were hope. Like, the word hope came out of his mouth. He realized he messed up. He laughed. He corrected himself and said something else. But he realized he said hope, and the assistant lady that was standing beside him looked at him, and we looked at him, and we were like, wow.
I think now when I reflect back on my childhood, it's happened a lot more than I think that it did, me being racially profiled. But growing up in Miami, there are so many minorities here that everybody's a minority. So it wasn't really, me being black wasn't something that was extremely prominent. It wasn't a thing because everybody was a minority. So when I went up to my school in Pennsylvania before I transferred to UM, I was in Western Pennsylvania, which was not a very diverse area. So that was my first time experiencing what it means to be a black woman in America. That was my first time experiencing when I step off in a plane and feeling every eye in the room in the airport look at you, or when I stepped into the cafeteria having every eye look at me because I was different. That was, I think, my first time experiencing racism in America, or feeling racially profiled in America. I mean, there was times when I would drive late at night that I would be fearful because I was black, and that never happened to me in Miami, but it definitely happened to me in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. There were times where I had teachers give me 10% or lower test grades on assignments compared to my peers that were not a minority. Or I felt it especially sometimes with my sports team under my coaches. They would racially profile me. And it was kind of a sad thing because at first I didn't realize what was happening, nor did my teammates. And I don't know if my teammates ever realized that it happened. But when I came home and started talking to my parents and my peers and my mentors, and they were like, Allie, you were being discriminated against on the softball team.
I was in New York, that's upstate New York, so it was predominantly a white area. Probably like 90% of the people were white. And the person was driving, his car broke down. He was, I think he was white as well. Yes, he was white. And it was me and another black guy in the back of the car. A police saw us on the side of the road, pull over to us, and she just was flashing the lights in our face. Me and the other guy beside me faces for a lot longer than I felt that was necessary. So that was the only probably racial profiling. She was just, looking at me longer. I probably could have been overthinking it. Probably it was just dark, she couldn't see, and we didn't turn on the lights in the car. I don't know. But I don't really want to give them excuses either. It made me feel very uncomfortable, and I don't see what we did wrong to make them feel like they needed to flash the light in our faces like that.
There's this fashion class, and one of my friends, she was in class, and they were talking about yarns, and the professor decided to use her an example and compare her hair to yarn, how it's similar, and decided to come touch up the girl ear in front of class. But yeah, there are a lot of instances like that I've seen, witnessed, experienced, especially because of my involvement in diversity and inclusion on campus. I hear stories like that every day. It's pretty prominent. It's nothing hidden at all.
A topic that hits home when it comes to being racially profiled is when parents of my white friends act different, their energy change when it comes to a certain subject. Because I'll talk to them, they'll be all cool, but when you get on the topic of their kids dating somebody of color, their energy changes. Like, you were just cool with black people, but you would never want to see your kid with a person of color. That doesn't make sense. Why does your energy change? Why are you being so racist? And I hate the fact that I say that it's normal, because I know a lot of people who actually are like that. Where I'm from, a lot of parents think just like that. I went to a private high school, and man, the amount of parents I see that are like that, it's just crazy. But it's different because the kids are like that as well. They'll see that like, well, it's just my preference. It's cool to have a preference, but definitely not when your preference is fueled by racism. That's a totally different topic, and I hate that that's such a normal thing. Why do you judge somebody based off their color? and not just base them off their character. Like, you don't even know the person. Give them a chance.
And it's no matter how much education you get, no matter how much you achieve, no matter how many great things you do, at the end of the day, you're just another black man. And if you get in the wrong situation at the wrong time, then you can lose your life. And it's just understanding that reality and going out into the world every single day and understanding that.
Being black is having to live with the fact that even though you accomplish many things, you make a name for yourself, or no matter how bright your future may be, to a white person or to a cop, you'll just be seen as another black target.
Regardless of our oppression and exhaustion, we continue to stand strong. I asked everyone to share their stories, but I also asked them to send a message to the public, to any group of people they desired. This is what they had to say.
My black and brown people, continue to infiltrate spaces that were not originally created for us, and when you do so, educate the people around you. Not everyone wants to explain why racism should cease to exist, but sometimes a little bit of conversation can go a long way. As victims of this ideology, rather than as creators of this ideology, it is not our job to eradicate the social injustices that oppress our community, but it is our job to advocate for reformation. To anyone who is not a person of color or not a member of a racially marginalized community, I encourage you to see us as equal. I encourage you to understand why it is a microaggression for you to ask how I can afford to attend a private institution. I encourage you to understand that my black friend was not accepted to Harvard University because of affirmative action, but because he is blessed, highly favored, and intelligent. I encourage you to understand why my pigmentation does not define my character. And to those of you who do see us as equal, I encourage you to be our allies by having conversations with your peers and advocating for us.
A message to my peers is that inaction is also action. It speaks volumes when you do not speak up or educate yourself on the Black Lives Matter movement. If you're someone who's trying to stay neutral during this time, you made your decision. And if you're tired of seeing and hearing about racism, imagine how tired we are seeing black men and women being killed, racially profiled, oppressed, and being systematically discriminated against. The momentum for justice has begun. It's up to our generation to push it forward.
Your mental health comes first. You know, a lot of us are advocating, we're doing a lot of social justice work, we're out there on the battlefield, but from personal experience, when you're dedicating so much of your time to this cause, it is easy to become desensitized and to just drop it and be like, you don't want to do this anymore because you're experiencing a burnout, basically. I have to say that I have experienced that before. Being at a PWI and putting so much time into my work with social injustice and whatever. But take a step back from all the issues and advocating and being a black person in America. Take a step back.
I would say to the people who lost someone to racial injustice that, you know, we're all family. Black people look out for black people. That's the truth. And for example, Stephen Jackson, a former NBA player, when he was in Minneapolis for the George Floyd situation, he looked at George Floyd's daughter and he vowed to be there for all of her life moments. He said, you know, I'm going to be there to take you to games. I'm going to be there for you for birthdays. And he's like, you know, I'm going to be there and I'll walk you down the aisle. So, like I said, black people look out for black people.
I just want to send a message out for peers, protesters, and whoever are advocating allies for the Black Lives Matter movement to keep on fighting for all minorities' lives, whether that be race, sexuality, economic status, ethnicity. People are people, and people don't deserve to be killed because of what they are different. People should be loved no matter who they are, so just keep on fighting to be good people. I think that's what we need to focus on as a society as whole, is just recognizing that there's something bigger than ourselves, and we all have love in us, and it's time to start showing that as a society.
Definitely for the young men and women, especially who are protesting right now. I'm in LA. I've lived right beside school. I've seen the protests. I've been with them. I've continued to show my support. They can't fight us forever. Obviously, if we continue to take the right initiative and do things the right way, definitely some of the issues that we've been having, like looting, we can't let that stop us. Be safe out there, because obviously there's a virus going on right now. We've tried to protest in the past before peacefully, and obviously like how Kaepernick got shut down and all those things. Definitely we have to be more in their faces now, and I think what we're doing right now is good. And as long as we can open up a conversation and show that we're being active in trying to implement the things from that conversation, I think it will do us well.
As Black people, we cannot be afraid to be leaders in a time like this. I think if anything, this year really revealed the true leadership skills of some of our superintendents for school districts, some of our governors, as well as our president. And as Black people, it is exhausting constantly having to advocate for yourself. But if anything, that should light fuel to our fire so that we can pour back into our communities, speak life into our children, and eventually we can really see equality start to unfold. And that doesn't happen unless we take the initiative ourselves. It has to start somewhere, and it has to start with us.
I advise people to do every single thing that they can. We can't allow this to be another time where we're just angry for a week, for 2 weeks. We got to take this moment and turn it into a real movement. We can't allow it to be a moment. It has to be a movement, and we have to create sustainable change. So go out and march in the streets, sign petitions, vote, send emails, demand justice, support a Black organization, support a Black business, educate yourself, educate the people around you, have difficult conversations. We need sustainable change in our society. We live in a society that does not value Black bodies and Black life, and it's our job to come together as a people and demand change.
Don't give up. Your voice matters. And always remember that way before slavery ever existed, we were kings and queens of Africa.